Good evening. I call the February 5th meeting of the Johnson City Board of Commissioners to order. Mr. Peterson, before we go into, I'll call for invocation in just a minute, but we do have a couple of changes to the agenda. We will move our audit report just in front of the consent agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we will pull the item that was for Combs.
Item 8.1.4 under general items on the consent agenda. You want to take that off the agenda?
Yes, and he
Yes,
will be
ma'am.
getting back with staff for further discussions on that. Very good. I think that's all. Thank you. This evening, we have Terry Mohan, I'm sorry, President of Doe River Gorge Ministries, here to say our invocation. Thank you very much for coming. I apologize for kind of massacring your name. And if we will all stand and remain standing for the pledge.
Okay, let's pray, shall we? Father God, we come before you this evening to thank you, Father, and to seek your wisdom and guidance. And so, Lord, tonight we thank you for who you are, for what you've done in our lives, and for what you're doing in this community. Thank you, Lord, for this beautiful area that we live in. So give us guidance, Lord, and wisdom as we seek to make decisions that will benefit this community and guide us to be all that you want us to be. You say in your word for us to that if we seek you, and that you will direct our paths. And so, Lord, I ask you tonight that we will trust in you, that we will seek your ways and acknowledge you, and that you will direct the paths. Thank you so much, Lord, for each of the commissioners here and the people who represent this community and those who make decisions. I know that everyone here is seeking to make this community in Johnson City the best that it can be. And so, Lord, we need wisdom in that. I know they face decisions that are difficult, that are complicated, that are sometimes controversial. So, Lord, give wisdom and give unity as we work together to make Johnson City the very best that it can be. Lord, I pray you give tonight a spirit of joy, a spirit of encouragement as this commission and these people work together. Bless our conversations, bless our discussions. And I just ask you, Lord, that 2020, this year, would be the best year in the history of this community as the decisions are made. And so we give you glory, and we ask it in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Peterson, one more thing before we get started. First of all, I want to thank our citizens for being flexible, and we've moved the meeting from tomorrow night to tonight, and we thank you for adjusting to that change. I also want to thank all of the city employees who I know you probably didn't think you would be out Wednesday night, and so thank you for making those adjustments as well. We really appreciate it very, very much. The reason we changed our meeting is because our Governor Bill Lee, will be in Johnson City tomorrow night, giving the state of East Tennessee State address with the Millennium Center, and so we wanted to be in attendance for that to support our governor, who supports us well here in East Tennessee. So thank you all again for your flexibility. Okay, Mr. Peterson, we are ready to go.
Your first order of business is consideration of the minutes held on from your meeting January 16th.
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Greenlee, could we ask you to come up front and center, please, sir? At this time, we'd like to make a presentation of a proclamation recognizing and supporting Black History Month. Herb has done this for years and has done a great job through the years of promoting Black History Month and the education associated with it. And I'd like to take a second and just thank Herb for all he's done through the years. You've made a huge difference in a lot of people's lives, Herb. We appreciate you.
I will second that motion for sure, Mr. Greenlee. I've attended in January two events that you held, actually three, for Martin Luther King recognition, and they were great. It was a great evening, and Carver Center was well attended and packed. And by the way, they make some pretty good meals over there too. It was really great. So we thank you for that. And it always seems that there's always a meal with your program, so that's good. I'm very proud and honored to read the proclamation for Black History Month, which is the month of February, and I know we have a lot of activities going on that you're going to tell us about here in just a minute. Get my glasses on. Whereas we are a strong and vibrant nation, thanks to the creativity, fortitude, and resilience of the people of every race and every background. And whereas we owe the study of Black history and the celebration of Black History Month to the efforts of Dr. Carter Godwin Woodson, born in 1875 in New Canton, Virginia. And whereas the son of former slaves, Woodson was educated at Berea College in Kentucky and earned his bachelor and master's degree at the University of Chicago, his PhD at Harvard, and studied at the Sorbonne in Paris, France. And whereas in 1915, Woodson founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. And whereas in 1926, he initiated the annual observance of Negro History Week in February, due to the birthdays of President Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. And whereas this annual event expanded into a month-long observance in 1976, known today as Black History Month. Now, therefore, I, Jenny L. Brock, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, in conjunction with the national observance, do hereby proclaim February 2020 as Black History Month. Well, Mr. Greenleaf, why don't you tell us what's going to go on this month? I've seen some agendas, and it looks really good. Thank you.
Well, February is Black History Month. It's also Heart Month. And we're doing a lot of different things at our center. We're honoring all the black businesses and entrepreneurs this month on February the 27th. We're going to have them to come in and set up a table and tell us what they do, where they're located, how they service the community, and see what we can do to help them and to get people to come out to utilize them and everything. And on February the 29th, we're doing a health fair from 9 to 11 for Heart Month. We're going to have heart doctors and people to give some information on how the heart operates and what you can do if you have an illness that you want to bring to the doctors or some of those people, you can. And then from 1 to 3, we're going to have recognition for some of the people, some of the caregivers, the doctors and nurses that have serviced all the people in the community, that have put back and went above and beyond the call of duty. We're going to do that with Color My World Healthy Awards. So we're doing that and hope to have a speaker for that program. We had Dr. Carl Odom, but he was called to Washington during that time, so we're looking for another doctor to come in to take his place. But anyway, we're going to go on with the program. It's going to be a nice program. Give me an example of this. My father, he started back in 1940, mid-40s, with a coal business. He serviced everybody in the community, whether he was black, white, blue, or green. He serviced everybody. And I'm telling you, he did it from in the mid-40s to the mid-80s before he gave it up. And he was in the Korean War and World War II. So once he got out, he serviced everybody with coal. And all our kids, I come from a family of 11, 7 sisters and 3 other brothers. So we all had to work at our business. And we lived in 2 houses on Belmont Street, which I live there today. And he had a coal yard in the back, and he serviced everybody. And whether you had any money or not, because back then, you either heat by it, you cook by it, or whatever. But he did all that back then. And he would get up in the middle of the night, somebody, a potbelly stove would go down. He would go and bring them coal and service them. Sometimes they couldn't pay because people weren't working and made a little back then, but he did a lot of that. And his advertisement, it wasn't going in the John City Press or some press chronicle. He'd go to people's porch and sit on there and talk to them about what their needs were. So it was a lot of communication, sitting on people's porches and delivering and doing a lot of things. So that's what our businesses did back then. And they brought it up, and then we're trying to make sure that they get recognized, because we're looking for a history that that people let die, and we're trying to bring some of it back to the people, through their siblings or whatever. That's part of Black history, and we want to thank everybody for coming out and listening to all those things. It's going to be on the 27th, and plus we're having a taste of our community. All the good foods that we service during the year, we're going to have all kinds of different foods, and you can taste them for $5. Plus, we're going to have Indian Trail students to come out to perform Black people that have went through the struggle. They're going to come out and they're going to tell about who they are. They're going to dress in the garb of what they did. So you can come out. We're going to have a good program on Thursday. It starts from 6 to 8 on Thursday, February the 27th. Then Saturday morning, you come out and get your blood pressure checked. You can get involved in our heart program. So thank you again.
And thank you, Herb. We also have some activities going on over at the Langston Center as well.
Yeah.
I think a lecture series that's really, really
They're
good.
doing a play on the 28th and 29th. Faye Smith, a lady that I went to school with, Faye Ellis now, she lives in Oak Ridge, and she's coming back to do a play. She do a skit. I remember years ago when I first got to Carver, she come for Black History Month, did the old lady. Okay, she did the old lady and who grew up in the neighborhood. So it's a lot of things that people bring back to the community that helps everybody. Because we're all in this together. This is our community, and we got to make the best of it. And I think we live in the best community in the state of Tennessee, because I've been all over, and I've seen it all.
Thank you, Herb. Here's the proclamation. Thank you.
Commissioners, your next order of business is consideration of a beer license application for New Beginnings located at 2910 North Bristol Highway. This is for a Class 1 on-premise beer license. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors, and the recommendation is for your approval.
Is the applicant in attendance? If you'd come forward, please. If you'd state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Michael Trivett. My mailing address is 120 Land's End Court at Piney Flats, Tennessee.
Very good. Have you read the rules and regulations on selling beer in the city of Johnson City?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you agree to abide by those?
Absolutely, ma'am.
Very good. Commissioners,
Move for approval?
is there a second? Okay, any other questions of our applicant? Okay, Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes. And are you a new owner, or has it changed hands? Is that why you're having to get a new license?
Actually, it was 32 years ago, last August, that my father and I came down to get our beer license for this business.
Oh.
And he passed away.
Okay, so you need to
it's
change the name.
Just changing the name, yes,
I
ma'am.
understand that. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I did have one question. When does it go into effect?
Mr. Peterson down here, he's the answer to that.
Do come by and pick it up in the morning.
Okay.
I think it'll be ready to go. If you'll just come in downstairs where you pay the water bills and stuff.
Yes, sir.
The ladies at the front counter can help you with it.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your next order of business is to consider a recommendation for the police department for one appointment to the Civil Service Board. Their recommendation after a vote of the participating members of the police department was to recommend that you appoint Colonel Robert Mitchell back to the Civil Service Board. He has served on this board for 7 years and has an excellent attendance record and is always shows up ready to deal with business, has been an excellent board member. So again, I would remind you, this is a recommendation from the police department. The actual appointment is yours to make.
Very good. Commissioners, it looks like he has quite a good background as well. Serves on the Congressman's Military Advisory Board also.
I will move to appoint Colonel Robert Mitchell as the Civil Service appointee.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Next is a street closure request associated with a special event permit for the Overmountain Chapter Trout Unlimited-492. This is associated with the Thirsty Orange Craft Beer Extravaganza to be held on Friday, April the 17th, and Saturday, April the 18th. This is an event that we've held several occasions. It occurs down in Founders Park, and what they're asking for is a portion of Commerce Street to be closed. We have reviewed this request and would recommend your approval.
Is the applicant here? If you'd come forward, please. Mr. Peterson, while they're coming up, is there a backup plan in case it rains? Will they be under the pavilion?
It's being held at the pavilion. When it rained, we had it 2 years ago and it rained, and so we put some tents around the outside and moved the people underneath the pavilion at that point.
Okay, and that would be the backup plan this year,
Correct.
too? No rain, we'll just say no rain.
We're hoping so.
Okay. But, so if there's no rain, you'll actually have the tents up on Commerce Street?
No, we just need Commerce Street blocked off. We have some food vendors at that point.
Okay.
The event will happen around the pavilion area. The vendors will be underneath the pavilion, and the public will be out around the outside.
Okay, very good, okay. Have you read the rules and regulations on selling alcohol in the city of Johnson City?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you agree to abide by those?
Yes.
Very good. Commissioners?
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any other comments? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes. You want to tell about your event? I have a feeling most of these guys up here know all about it, but
Whatever are you implying?
because you go to so many activities in town.
Unlimited.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is an event for fundraiser for Trout Unlimited. This is the 9th annual festival we've had. We highlight a lot of the brewers from East Tennessee, Knoxville, Chattanooga, and Nashville. So we try to make it more of a local event. But certainly there's a sampling to kind of test the wares of what the local makers are making around here. And it's a great time to bring the community together and just have a great time and enjoy the beautiful city that we have here.
Very good. How many do you think show up?
2,000 to 3,000.
Very good, okay. Well, we'll hope no rain this year.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and good luck.
Thanks.
Your next item of business is to consider a special event permit from the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation requesting a street closure to accommodate their One Walk Tri-Cities event to be held on Sunday, April the 19th, 2019. I will make note that in your packet, the date says May. That is incorrect. The actual date is April the 19th. We have reviewed this application and would recommend your approval for the street closures as requested.
Is the applicant here? Well, Commissioner England,
Say that out loud.
we are very honored to have your presence with us.
Well,
tonight.
glad to be here representing the JDRF office out of Knoxville.
Okay.
This will be our second year of having the One Walk in Johnson City after, I think, 18 years at Warriors Path. It went very well last year. We're changing the route just a bit. Last year, we walked up into the tree streets, and I think some folks got lost. So
They may still be out there,
they
yeah.
may be out there. So we're going to focus more on around the Pavilion, Founders Park, and then the Kings Common and back, shorten it just a bit, and take advantage of the Pavilion. Went very well last year. We appreciate the city allowing us to do that.
Good. Well,
We will follow the Thirsty
I was
Orange.
going to say, your event is the day after the Thirsty Orange.
I realize that.
and I'm sure you'll be down there the day before to make sure everything's okay, right?
Exactly,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
To walk around and see what it's going to be like the
Right.
day after.
And hope for good weather.
All right,
for both.
commissioners.
Move approval.
Motion and a second. Any other questions? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes. How many are you expecting this year?
I think we had around 400 last year.
Okay.
And talking with the ladies in Knoxville, I know we've got several newly diagnosed families in the area that will be attending our family team event this Sunday here at Quantum Leap. It's an event for the parents to get together and the children to have fun while we talk about everything that's going on with JDRF. And, yeah, they told me they've got about 16 new families coming, so hate to hear that. But
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Well, we thank you for all you do for diabetes and you and your wife's hard work. We keep up with you on that, so thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Karen, are you sure you don't want to stay and go last?
And we should note that Commissioner England's son is one of our newest police officers.
Russell is one of our newest police officers and probably one of, if not the most energetic, enthusiastic, and happiest employees we've got. Every time I see him, he is electric with excitement about being a police officer and being able to do what he's wanted to do for a long time.
He takes after his brother.
Thank you.
Karen, if you want to come up and present the audit, please, ma'am.
It's always a privilege to be able to present the audit to you all. I appreciate all that the commission does and all that the finance department does to make this a really good report every year. If you have in front of you just a little handout that I put up there, if you don't have one, I've got a couple of other copies, but this is a little summary. Tara Finner is the audit manager that oversees the day-to-day work on the audit, and she's put this together for us tonight to help go through the report a little bit. It is a big report, and you don't want me to go through every single page. One thing I would point out, you did get the GFO certification again for the fiscal year 2018, and that's in this report. That is the 18th consecutive year that you all have received that, and it is quite a distinguished honor to have that certificate for excellence in financial reporting. And so that we hope that you'll get it again this next year. We see no reason that you wouldn't. The opinion letter is again a clean, unmodified opinion. The only thing that you will notice a little bit different than in this year on the opinion itself is that we did have to note a change in accounting principles. There were 2 new principles that we had to put in place, neither of which had any real impact on your all's financial statements. But those are disclosed. One just means that going forward, we will no longer capitalize the interest on construction projects, which we have done in the past. We didn't have to restate anything for it. Just going forward, it's not going to be capitalized anymore. The other one was just some more note disclosures on long-term debt, and I'm sure you all are excited about that as we were. So, the MD&A is written by Janet, and it begins on pages 4 through 15. And I would encourage you, if you've not read through it, to at least read the financial highlights. The numbers are good, the numbers are important, but sometimes the narrative helps explain it a little bit better. And so she's done an excellent job in doing this. We do review what she writes and make sure numbers tie back out. And so it's an excellent summary of the citywide report. The government-wide financials are on pages 16 through 19, but if you will look at the second page of your handout, we've summarized the revenues and expenses of the governmental activities and the business-type activities and totaled them so that you can see the increase in net position for the year of revenues and over expenses was $7,113,000 for both the governmental and business-type activities combined. And then there was a prior period restatement for some construction in progress. Yes?
The distinction between governmental and business type is general fund and enterprise funds?
Pretty much, yes. The governmental type includes anything that is maintained on a governmental basis. Special revenue funds, the general fund, the general purpose school fund are the primary ones that you would have. And then the enterprise funds are your water and sewer fund, your stormwater fund, ones that would operate with a fee that's charged for them. Typically the others, there's not a direct correlation between revenue earned and expenses paid. With the business type ones, there's more of that correlation. With those, you can also see that you've ended with a strong net position in both the governmental activities and the business type activities for a total of $350 million. One of the things that's also very important is always to look at your debt schedules. We've noted that they're in here in a couple of places. In the note disclosures, they're on page 142. And if you look at them, you can see the breakdown between governmental and between the business type ones. Those note disclosures, as I said, there were expansions to those this year, so you actually, within your footnotes, pages 117 through page 142 are all on long-term debt. But the summary is on 142, and that's probably what you're the most interested in. Also, in the handout, if you will look at the third page of the handout, we've summarized those long-term liabilities so that you can see those within the governmental activities and the business type. Your long-term liabilities include a lot more than just your general obligation bonds, though. They also include your pension liabilities, your other post-employment benefit liabilities, compensated absences. So there's several other things included in there that make up your long-term liabilities. Just within the general obligation bonds, though, you can see that for the governmental activities, you actually paid down about $5 million, which was very good, puts you in a very strong position there.
Could you restate that?
Yes, you paid down about $5 million.
So there's $5 million less general obligation
in
debt.
general liability. It went from $123 million to $118 million. So in the business type activities, you did increase it, but that was for additional debt in the water and sewer fund for specific projects. And again, within those business type funds, because they operate as a business, you have revenues that help to pay those down. In addition to the schedule on page 142, in the notes in the very back, on page 265, it talks about your debt margin and your capacity to borrow within your general obligation bonds, and you are well under your legal debt limit. In fact, your capacity would show that you have about another $106 million that you would be able to have capacity for, so you're well within your debt limits.
But the debt limit, the legal debt limit is based on a percentage of
the taxes that would be generating to pay the debt off.
And that, we're at what, about 5%?
That's actually on page 265, and let's see what
You're at 4.3 on the 10, out of the 10.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So we could go up to 10% if you could afford to make
If you
the
can afford to
payments.
make the payments,
But,
yes.
Mr. Peterson, why not, just for the public's information, just what we self-impose in terms of the way we calculate when and if we issue debt?
Well, there's obviously got to be a justifiable reason for the issuance of debt and a good project. The elected body in this city has always been really good about making strategic reinvestments back into our infrastructure, which leads to tremendous return on investment. But the things we look at are historical revenue streams, short-term revenue streams, revenue projections. We'll always work with our financial advisor to look at what our debt payments are going to be for the duration of the issuance that we're looking at. You know, in other words, how much debt's going to roll off, when's it going to roll off, when can we issue debt and try to maintain an even debt service payment. I mean, the magic number in general terms right now is about $10 million a year in debt service payments. We know if we don't go much above that amount's already built into the budget, and you really don't feel it in your general fund budget to issue debt as long as you can maintain your debt service payments about that limit. Anytime we issue new debt, of course, we'll have to work and go through the rating agencies, and they do a very thorough review of our audits and financial position, the local economy, not just the Johnson City economy, but the Northeast Tennessee economy, the unemployment rate. They look at a lot of different factors. So the issuance of debt is not something we take lightly. There are a number of parameters that we try to stay within, and the legal limit is 10% of the assessed value of real estate within the city limits of Johnson City. As Janet pointed out, currently we're at about 4.3%, so that leaves us about 5.7% additional capacity should we determine we have the ability to make those debt service payments. We don't need to go there.
No. We're pretty conservative.
You won't hear that out of me, but.
We know what our maximum mortgage payment is, and we stick to it.
We do, and, again, I think all of those metrics are great, but to me, I think the thing that really drives it is the project justified? Is it needed? And is it a strategic reinvestment into our local infrastructure that will promote and foster a higher quality of life and increased economic activity? It's got to have a good return.
And our bond rating.
Our bond rating is AA with all three agencies. Now, the obvious question, if I can, is can we get a AAA? That would take some improvement well beyond the corporate limits of Johnson City and the local economy. They look at a much broader footprint to move to that AAA level. There's what, half a dozen AAA cities in the state, maybe?
They're looking at all of the industry around and everything else, so it's
Right.
not totally within your all's ability.
I would love to get us there, but
What are the major factors that keep it
The amount
from?
of debt we have outstanding, which they continue to comment about, even though it is low, relatively speaking, they do comment about that, so.
I mean, they're going to look at job growth, median household income, unemployment rate, credit worthiness and credit forecast for your major employers, and not just within the city. I mean, they're going to look at Eastman, they're going to look at AFG, they're going to look at what's happening at Bristol Motor Speedway. They're going to look at a lot of things because it takes a lot of different factors to ensure the stability of our Johnson City economy to warrant a AAA credit worthiness.
Also look at the strength of your planning. They look at how you're coming in against your budget, how well you're budgeting. They look at how well you're sticking to your 5-year CIP. They look for consistency there. Are you planning things out for 5 years and sticking relatively close to that plan? So they look at those as well.
Okay, Karen, well, after we've been bragging on ourselves, we'll turn it back to you.
That's
You may tell us
very good
something else.
conversation. The next thing I would look at are the capital assets, and if you I didn't do another detailed schedule on that one, but in your report, if you do want to look at it later, on page 84 and 85, there is a summary of the capital assets, again, for the governmental activities and for the business-type activities. If you look at financial statements on a month-to-month basis, those business-type activities actually have all those capital assets and accumulated depreciation recorded on them, as any business would have. On the governmental activities, those run through your expenditures, and they are not reflected as an asset on the fund level financials that you look at when you're comparing to your budget each year. Only at the government-wide level do we pick all of that up. And so as a result of that, we did have an adjustment during the year for some construction in progress that had actually moved to fixed assets in previous years and had not come off of that other listing because those don't really have a balance sheet place that they go. There have been other measures already put in place to take care of that and looking at it each month. But that is a little bit different just in the way that it's reflected from month to month. Pages 194 to 196 give you some additional information on your capital assets, including the function, so that you can see what assets were purchased for education, for public works, for general government. And you can see how each of those different functions, the assets that are within those. One of the other things that's very important to look at are your grant activity. You all were able, with the federal monies, to receive over $13 million last year, and on your state awards, over $3 million last year. And in order to be able to do that, you still have to comply with so many steps anymore. You have a lot of compliance within each of these grants as far as reporting, accomplishments, performance, and so all of these things, it's very important that you're able to continue to keep these up, but it's also important to note the amount of work that goes into being able to do that. So you've done an excellent job with that as well. We do have reports in the back of the report. We have two reports. One is a report on internal controls on the financial reporting as a whole and over the compliance of your financial reporting. And then the other is a report on the compliance and internal controls over the federal projects, over your major grants, your major federal funding. And we did not have any material weaknesses in either one of those, and so that's excellent. We only had two items that we have noted as a significant deficiency, and the only reason either of those were in there is just being able to detect that there was a problem timely. Once it was brought to the attention of those that were involved, corrections were made immediately, and there's already a corrective action plan in there so that those things will be reconciled more frequently. Again, in most cases, they were not things that, like with the capital assets, they're not ones that are on the books every month anyway. So this is an additional level of reconciliation that will be put in place. The other one did deal with a federal grant where an overclaim had been requested, but it was refunded. So all of that's been taken care of, and there are, again, the corrective action looks really good to keep that from happening in the future. We do have a couple of other letters that come to you. One of them is just a letter that tells you what our responsibilities are in an audit and what you expect in that, and that we had no major difficulties in working with anything. Everyone gives us great cooperation and does an excellent job, and we really appreciate that. The other one just had those two items and then some items we would just consider best practices that didn't even rise to the level of needing reported in them. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, I think we engaged during the process, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will all go through this in depth.
Yes.
As our reading material, but thank you. And this is great for us too, because we can use it as,
A reference.
you know, throughout the year as a reference to our financials.
We actually do read them.
I know
there
you
are those
do.
who imagine we don't.
I know you do. And I would encourage you, like I said, the management discussion and analysis is really good because sometimes the narrative helps explain what the numbers mean. So, but I do appreciate it.
Thank
Does
you.
this get put up on the website for,
Does,
is it
yes.
already out there or? Okay.
You had first.
We have to pass it first. Yeah, we have to. Yeah, so we certainly also want to thank Mr. Peterson for you and Ms. Jennings and Mr. Wilson. You do a great job keeping us grounded, and I think we're in a pretty strong financial position, if you would agree to that.
I would, and I appreciate the commission and your all's attention that you pay to the financials. It's important that you do that, so.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions before we go on? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
So will it be put on the website sometime in the next week? Okay.
Next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda. You have
Commissioners?
removed item 8.1.4,
Okay.
which is consideration of a property acquisition on West Fairview and King Street. The rest of the consent agenda is in order and ready for your consideration.
Commissioner Calhoun, would you like to pull anything?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Hunter? Commissioner Fowler?
Nope.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to pull two things, actually, mainly for the public, so they can understand. I particularly would like just a real short review of the mobile radios because of the tremendous amount of funding that's required, and I want the public to know what it costs to provide for our public safety, or, at least one of the items. All right.
What is the other one? So I can have somebody read it.
The Miller Lane Bridge.
Okay.
Just real quickly, I see.
Phil, if you'll cover Miller Lane Bridge.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be long, just real quick. All right, sir. You want to just give us a overview?
The overview is the radios are approximately, their lifespan is 10 years. We bought them in 2009. It's 2019. Motorola quit supporting them in December of 2019. So, and the parts are obsolete now. So they were not producing any more parts for these radios. We've kind of brought it down just to public safety, school transit, and mass transit are the only ones we're purchasing, or mass transit will be purchasing their own radios, but that's the only ones we're purchasing radios for this time because that's all we think we need at this point in time. The other people who are using radios approximately right now, we have enough radios for support until they don't work anymore, but we're looking at some other alternatives to do besides radios, because the radios for Public Works or anybody like that, it's $2,500. We think
Per radio?
Per radio, so we think we can, do some more cost-effective manners than that. So that's where we are right now, Mayor.
Okay. And we're on the state system, is that correct?
Yeah, we're on the state system. That cost us $200 per radio on the state system, yes, ma'am.
Okay, in addition to the purchase of the hardware?
To the addition of the purchase, yes.
And we're able to communicate with Washington County?
Washington County, Sullivan County. If we go out of the area, we can communicate down in Nashville, Chattanooga, wherever we go. We can communicate. That was one of the big things with the state system.
Right.
We can communicate all over the state of Tennessee.
And everybody else in this area is on the state system now?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. I think the only one that's not right now is Morristown, and they're looking to do it Morristown and Sevierville are looking to do it in the near future.
Okay, be good. And so we're investing on this purchase?
About $2.3 million.
Okay.
It's 567 radios.
Okay,
The
so.
police radios, the portables are roughly around $4,700 a piece. So, yeah, it's an expensive business.
It is, but it's to our benefit.
Oh, it is to our benefit, and, we need public safety to have the best they can have, and, the proper equipment to do their job.
Very good. Commissioners, any other questions of Mr. Hindley about the radio system? Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Pinzola, if you could just give us a quick thing, I just really, again, want the public to know some of the kind of work that y'all do and what we're doing out off Sinking Creek.
This is a bridge replacement project, and it's funded through the stormwater program. There are two types of bridges in Johnson City on the local street network. One involves the state, and it depends on the size of the bridge structure, the length. In those cases, state annually inspects the bridges, and then we do the maintenance work associated with it. If it needs to be replaced, that tends to be on an 80-20 split. The second type bridge is this type, where they're much smaller, and so the state doesn't get involved. We inspect and found that this actually has problems with the abutments of the bridge. The bridge is also too narrow. It doesn't have any side protection. So we felt like this needed to be replaced. We agreed with the residents. So this bridge is located off of Sinking Creek Road. Miller Lane ties into Sinking Creek. There are a series of public bridges along that route. Also included in this contract is the creek meanders and sometimes will erode towards homes. So this also includes a design of a wall that fell in to replace that wall. We're satisfied with the design team from Vaughn and Melton and feel like these are worthwhile projects. Probably take 6 months or so to design, and then we'll schedule a bidding.
Thank you. It certainly will make some improvements. If people drive out in that area, they'll certainly see that.
Well, that is part of the stormwater program. We do pay a lot of attention to the bridges, and we're in pretty good shape, but we do from time to time look at replacements such as Baxter, which is the first one, this is second, and then we're taking a hard look at Austin Springs.
And this ties to our stormwater fee, which we all pay in the
Correct.
city, and it helps us do these kind of projects. So, thank you, Mr. Penzel. I appreciate it. Commissioners, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4728-20. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith, and amendatory thereof by changing from B1 Neighborhood Business District to PB Planned Business District, certain property located at 3061 South Rome Street. Ready for your consideration on first reading.
Hassan?
Mayor, Commissioners, before you is a request to rezone a piece of property at 3061 South Rome Street from B1 Neighborhood Business District to PB Planned Business District. The applicant intends to use this property for a fitness center. As you see on the map, the property is on a corridor that is generally zoned for commercial purposes. The future land use map designates this particular property for commercial development, which aligns with what the applicant is proposing to do. In terms of land use compatibility, this corridor adjoining South Rome Street is generally commercial, and then the residential uses to the rear. So this particular use will fit into the development character of the area. The building already exists on site. He's not proposing any modifications to it, any changes. It's simply the site will be used as is. The future land use map, as indicated, designates this piece of property for commercial development. The site will be used as is. No changes will be made to the site. The property owner had a neighborhood meeting. Nobody showed up at that particular meeting. We've not received any calls with respect to this proposal. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended that you approve the change in the zoning district from B1 to PB.
Mr. Calhoun, any comment from the Planning Commission?
Nothing of any substance on yours. I think that parcel of land's been a number of things, and it's got a good use.
Got parking already, for sure.
It's already got parking.
All right, we have a
that's for
motion by Vice Mayor Wise. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any other questions? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 472920. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith, and amendatory thereof by changing from B4 planned arterial business and R4 medium density residential to PB planned business district, and from B4 planned arterial business and R4 medium density residential to RO2 medium density residential professional district. Certain properties along Watauga Road and Fairhaven Drive is ready for your consideration on first reading.
Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mayor, Commission, Mr. Peterson. This item includes 8 properties. It actually began simply as one. It grew through staff analysis, but also grew once we got into the neighborhood meetings. So I'll explain that to you here. The area of consideration is right here on the screen where my mouse is. It is here in the far eastern portion of the city, near QEP and even further east from the Pepsi-Cola plant. It is here at the intersection of Watauga. This is MacArthur, and this is Fairhaven. So this is actually looking back towards town. How it began was with 2532. We had a preliminary conversation, pre-development meeting with a group that was interested in constructing a retail store on this site. We realized that it was a split zone piece of property. Anytime we find split zone property, we, the city, like to initiate the rezoning and correct split zoning wherever we can. We knew that they were going to go back. They had some due diligence work to do, and so we said that we would move forward on this. In studying the map, and proposing to solidify the split zoning situation on 2532, we wanted to go ahead and consolidate this area, this little commercial node, into the same zoning. So in doing so, we thought we would go ahead and grab a hold of 2601, 2603, which are both commercial structures, as well as 2527, so that you have the same zoning classification, that being PB or planned business. As we moved into, and then on 2533, we were hoping that these folks too would want to be a part of that to help kind of close that donut hole, especially since they're here on the corner or the intersection of Watauga and MacArthur. I would like to add that there is also transit that reaches out this far. Actually, this is the eastern terminus of our transit route. It comes up and then makes a left on MacArthur and then wraps back around through the neighborhood. So this is a great little neighborhood community node. These folks who live here at 2533, they were very interested in the rezoning. However, they said they would like to rebuild their home at some point in the future, so the PB doesn't work for them. So in doing that, we proposed the RO2. Gives them the ability to still operate a small professional business off that property if they ever wanted to, but still gives them the ability to rebuild the home. As we moved into the neighborhood meeting phase, we had great participation from the property owners in the area, and in fact, both of these property owners here at 2530 and then at 102 Fairhaven said they'd like to be a part of the rezoning. And so we are proposing that they be included. And then finally, the lady that owns 2525, this property was willed to her. It's been in the family for some time. She lives there now and had no earthly idea that she was living in commercial zoning. And so she was very interested in the RO2 concept. And so from a planning perspective, this is good because it kind of brings on a wedding cake effect. You've got residential that steps up to the RO2, steps up to the PB, and then steps back down. If at any time in the future that these folks sell, then possibly we could propose to change that to PB as well. But this is a nice little commercial node. As we've moved forward on this, it just so happens that the retailer, Dollar General, has submitted their plans. So those plans are in review right now, but they're on hold until the rezoning goes forward. If it does, they know that this is at their own risk, but they wanted to go ahead and get these in and get them under review. From a future land use perspective, the future land use map actually splits down Watauga Road. That's a little bit of an outdated method for future land use planning. You really try not to divide down the center of your collector or your arterial roadways, because on the right-hand side you've got industrial future land use, and on the left-hand side you've got residential. As we move forward with updates to our land use plan, we will correct these. But in this particular case where you've got this little commercial node, we believe that the size and the scale of the node and the commercial development that's already in there is not inconsistent with your future land use planning. So that said, the Planning Commission at their meeting on January 14th unanimously recommended approval. Thank you.
I'd move to approve it. I think staff initiated in a number of these, and there's really good participation from the community, from what I recall.
Yes, sir.
Very good.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any other questions of Mr. Mitchell? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4730-20, an ordinance to amend section 4.6 on one principal building per lot of the zoning code of the city of Johnson City. A song?
Mayor, Commissioners, before you receive, staff initiated request to amend section 4.6 in the zoning ordinance that deals with the requirement or the restriction that lots in the city will only have one principal building per lot. This is a map of just an area in the city. You take a close look at it on this piece of property, for example, that is zone R6, that is high-density residential. It's got multiple buildings on it. In this other area, that is zone R2, low-density residential, the lots only have one structure on them. This one that is zone B1 for neighborhood business district is got two buildings on the property. Historically, the way this code has been kind of interpreted is that the limitation of one principal building per lot really applies to the districts that we generally call single-family residential districts. Those are really the low-density districts. Others have permitted multiple buildings on individual lots. So what staff is really proposing here is simply a cleanup in the language. We're not changing the development practice in the city. We're just making sure that anybody who picks up the code, everybody will be on the same page, both to the public and internally. The Planning Commission at its meeting on January 14 recommended approval.
Did the Planning Commission see the use of the word inferential hermeneutics?
No.
Because I really like that.
That's an addition.
Was that your word? Hassan?
If it hadn't been for Google, I wouldn't have known what we were voting on.
We looked it up the other night, by the way.
Just as we use this text and interact with the public, different interpretations come in, and we just want to clean it and make sure everybody's on the same page.
Good, thank you. Commissioners?
Move to approve.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4727-20 on second reading. An ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2020 budget passed by ordinance number 4692-19. This is the budget amendment ordinance that you saw at your last meeting, which takes into consideration some school improvement projects that we're getting ready to undertake, as well as some adjustments in revenues and expenditures to cover staffing and grants at the Langston Center, restructuring and development services, and the replacement of a number of computers on an accelerated schedule due to our cyber attack.
Move approval.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4724-19. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith and amendatory thereof, changing from I-2 heavy industrial district to R4, medium-density residential district. Certain property located at 204 Highland Avenue is ready for your consideration on third and final reading.
Reiner.
Any change since the last two
No
times?
new information to report. since
Move
the second
approval.
reading.
Second.
Just remind the public, though, where this is located.
This is located at the corner of intersection of Highland Avenue and Whitney Street. It's a Habitat for Humanity-owned property. They're proposing to build a single-family house in this lot.
So we're taking it from an industrial zone to a single-family dwelling?
Yes, from heavy
And it
industrial.
overlooks Founder's
to-
Park, so in that area. So
Yes, ma'am.
Makes sense. Okay, very good. We have a motion?
Yep.
And a second. Okay, Ms. Jennings.
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4725-19. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith and amendatory thereof by changing from I-2 Heavy Industrial District to MX1 Mixed Use Neighborhood District, certain property located at 202 Highland Avenue, ready for your consideration on third and final reading.
Mr. Ryder, if you would also, just the location of it, I don't think anything's changed, has it?
No new information since the second reading, since the first or second readings. It's in the same location at the corner of Highland and Whitney. Across the street is the parking lot for Founder's Park. It's near Founder's Park. They're proposing to go for, this is city-owned property, staff-initiated, downzoning from I-2 to MX1.
Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Any other questions? Ms. Jennings.
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Next ordinance is consideration of ordinance number 4726-19, an ordinance to abandon a portion of an alley in the block bounded by Wilson Avenue, South Moon Street, West Main Street, and South Commerce Street upon the terms and conditions contained herein and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, ready for your consideration on third and final reading. This is the alley that runs perpendicular to the First Presbyterian Church that we are abandoning and is a part of the land swap that you've previously approved.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe Mr. Peterson covered it. The only thing I'd like to add is I advised that Pastor Paul with First Presbyterian, that the meeting had changed. He said unfortunately he wasn't going to be able to be here tonight. It's Wednesday. But he said to please let him know what happens. So again, just note.
We voted against it.
Just want to note that this is a portion of the alley. It's not the whole thing. There still would be a piece remaining here adjacent to Mid-City Grill. So the abandonment will stop short, still allow for garbage pickup on that piece as well as ingress and egress to the parking lot. And then the other important thing to note is that there will be a permanent utility and access easement remaining in that area because we do have subsurface utilities.
Mr. Peterson? Oh, I'm sorry, I just had a question. How will that physically be closed off? What?
It will basically be a transfer, and if they want to close it off, it would be up to them to determine how they wanted to put a physical barrier there. We will just have to ensure the portion of the alley that remains open doesn't get blocked so we can get in there and provide services that to those buildings that back up to the alley.
And then we're going to make some improvements to the parking lot at some point in time.
The parking lot on the corner. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the one that we own now across from Wings.
Yes.
Which is in real disrepair. What's the time factor on that? Do you know?
I wouldn't look for that to happen before April, May. I mean, the asphalt plants are closed and.
Well, we don't own it yet. We've approved the transfer, but I
Right.
think that transfer with
transfer
Presbyterian Church
still has
is
to be approved
related
by
to
the
the alley
church.
abandonment.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Oh, they have to approve it. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. But soon after, because we're getting ready to go into spring season with lots of traffic and events down that way too, so keep that in
I
mind.
wouldn't expect it any sooner than April, but
Okay.
we will put that on a high priority. Yes,
Very
ma'am.
good. All right, is there a motion?
Moved approval. Second.
All right, anything else? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Seriously, though, tell them you don't know what happened. We voted against it.
We wanted it back.
Exactly. We didn't know what to do without him here.
Okay, your next item of business is consideration of an interlocal agreement with Washington County Emergency Communications District, otherwise more commonly referred to as 911. This is an agreement that would be in effect for the fiscal year 2020. The district will provide personnel to handle all of the dispatch services for the city on a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week duration for the duration of the agreement. They will handle radio traffic and dispatching for the Police Bureau, the Fire Bureau, EMS in Johnson City, and the pen operations for the city. They will also provide a supervisor to oversee the dispatch operations. In exchange for that, we will make a payment to the 911 for $900,000 in quarterly installments of $225,000. This is the amount you approved in your FY20 budget. This is just the written agreement that goes with the appropriation you've already approved. All of the employees utilized for these purposes will be employees of the 911 district, and we would recommend your approval as this is an annual agreement that we enter into with 911.
Move approval. Second.
Any other comments? I'll just add that we're very fortunate with our 911 organization and what they do for this community. Very professional, and glad they're in some facilities that really help them do their jobs. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Your next item is consideration of a resolution encouraging the support of the Tennessee State Legislature to direct reimbursement to local ambulance providers at the TennCare ground rate. You want me to read the
Well,
resolution
I
or
really
give you a
want-
recap of
I
it?
want the public to understand what this resolution is, so if you can highlight it.
Yes, ma'am.
That would be fine.
Currently, ground ambulance transportation is reimbursed at a rate less than the Medicare rate, which gets nowhere close to covering the actual cost of ground transport. What this resolution is a resolution of support of a bill that is in front of the state legislature to raise the rate of reimbursement to ground transportation for ambulances to at least the Medicare rate. The difference between what they collect for reimbursement from Medicare and TennCare and insurance carriers and what it costs them to operate the ambulance service is made up by what the local governments appropriate to EMS. So this is something that I would strongly recommend that we get behind and ask our legislative delegation to support, because this is the difference between us paying for it or the providers being reimbursed at least the Medicare rate. The TennCare rate as it is now is much less than the Medicare rate.
We have other cities and counties who are doing this resolution.
I know for sure that, I think Greenville, Greene County, Kingsport, maybe Bristol and Kingsport. I think everybody I've talked to so far is going to support this because it is a fairly substantial financial burden on local governments to reimburse. I mean, you've got, and Commissioner Calhoun understands this much better than I ever could when it comes to Medicare versus TennCare reimbursements and yeah, and Dr. Fowler, I'm sorry, Dr. Fowler.
That's okay, I understand it very well.
there's a drastic difference between the two reimbursement rates.
Absolutely.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'd move to approve with the change of the date in the resolution. It says February 6th, and obviously it's February 5th because we changed the meeting day.
Yes, sir.
Good catch. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Thank you for that. The next item is consider a resolution of support to keep minor league baseball. Charlie, since you're the author, I'm going to let you explain this one, please, sir.
This resolution has been prompted and determined as necessary. We've been in constant communication with our partner, which is Boyd Sports, which you all have provide general managership to the Johnson City Cardinals, which is an advanced rookie league team and frankly currently Appalachian League champions this past year. But we received word in 2019 that the major leagues apparently want to renegotiate an agreement that's expiring in 2020 with regard to its farm league system, specifically the minor leagues, which have been a feeder system for Major League Baseball, formal feeder system since 1963. We've actually had minor league baseball in Johnson City since 1911, and the Appalachian League was actually formed in 1911, but there was a variety of teams here. We first started out with the Johnson City Soldiers back in 1911. We've had some other team names, but by the early 1960s, the major leagues and the minor leagues basically formed a more formal organization, of which we became part of the Appalachian League, and we've basically been affiliated with that under the Johnson City Cardinals since 1975. And this team has been very much a fixture in this community since that time. And now the major leagues have proposed essentially the potential elimination of 42 minor league teams after the 2020 season, when I guess the contract will be up. And this would be devastating, obviously, to, we feel, the nation, not just the region, but specifically here in Johnson City as well. And I can read this resolution, and I have no problems doing so. I can answer
We're going to
specific
have, Commissioner Fowler's going to read it. He
Right.
works with the team, and I am going to ask Zach if
Zach
he'd like
Clark's
to...
here, our general manager,
Yeah.
so we...
You want to say a few words, Zach, and then we'll read the resolution and vote on it.
Let me say one thing, let
Okay.
Zach piggyback on that. We have, in the past 8 years, and Boyd Sports has been with us for 4 years now, and the important part of this resolution is and we'll let Commissioner Fowler relate that, is the investment in Johnson City by this city commission and your predecessors, as well as the investment in Johnson City Cardinals and Cardinal Park by our partner Boyd Sports is significant. And I think the argument that the major leagues are making that we are not investing enough to support our team in the minor league and others similar to us is simply erroneous. And I think the other point I want to make is that the major leagues have had record revenues in 2019, and the argument that we need to do more when we are doing more, I think, is certainly open to question. But I'll let Zach come on up, and as well as let Commissioner Fowler say the rest.
Well, thank you for this. First and foremost, this support is exactly what we need to kind of fight this and make sure that, not only the Johnson City Cardinals, but the rest of the Appalachian League remains, because I do believe it would be devastating to our communities to lose our baseball teams. With this current proposal and the 42 teams that would effectively be eliminated, baseball would go away in those communities, and some of those communities, some of those states would lose all of their baseball teams. West Virginia, for instance, Montana, and then where do those folks go to get their fix, so to speak? So it's not just Johnson City, but we really appreciate the support that we've gotten here locally, not only from you all, but the community. And that's what we've tried to build. Everything that we've done at the stadium, we've tried to do through community. So this resolution is extremely important to us. It means the world to us. I appreciate you all coming to this conclusion that it is important to save our teams. And, Mayor, I do want to thank you as well because you have joined the mayoral task force. So I think it would be important to say something about that as well. I believe the number is up over 120 or so mayors now on the task force. As I mentioned, there's 42 teams on the chopping block. So this is obviously very important to communities that aren't on the chopping block, that are on the chopping block, communities that have baseball teams, that don't have baseball teams. So what we're doing here is extremely important, and I do appreciate everything that you all have done, and I'm sure will continue to do.
Yes, I might just add, we're really grateful to the mayor of Chattanooga, Mayor Burke, and out of South Carolina, and I forget who the third one is.
Yeah, Florida.
Who really stepped up and started taking some leadership. And I think through this task force, then we can be united in terms of what we want to do or can do to, send a common message, definitely for sure. So,
well, if baseball wants to grow the game, the way to do that is not to eliminate 42 grassroots communities and strip them of their teams. So, and I mentioned a couple of states that would lose all their baseball. If you want to count the Bristol Pirates as being a member of the group of teams in Tennessee, since they're on the border, the state of Tennessee would lose 7 of their 9 baseball teams. Only 2 to survive would be Memphis and Nashville. So.
Well, we would lose 4 within 20 miles, right?
That's correct, yeah. Greenville, Kingsport, Bristol, Elizabethton, and Johnson City, so.
Goodness. Yeah. Well, we'd like to show our support by reading the resolution, and Commissioner Fowler, you want to do it?
A resolution of support to keep minor league baseball in communities across America. Whereas for over 100 years, minor league baseball teams have promoted America's national pastime through affiliation with Major League Baseball in order to coordinate talent development and quality play at all levels. And whereas Johnson City has been affiliated with the Appalachian League since its creation in 1911, which became a rookie class league of minor league baseball in 1963, and whereas the Johnson City Cardinals have had a consistent community presence since 1975, winning the Appalachian League Championship in 2010, 2011, 2014, 2016, and 2019. And whereas beyond the talent on the field, members of the executive team earned the distinguished recognition as the Executive of the Year and the Woman of Excellence during the 2019 Appalachian League Executive Awards. And whereas over the past 8 years, the City of Johnson City and its general management partner, Boyd Sports, have collectively expended in excess of $3 million in facility improvements to Cardinal Park and produced a total economic impact to the community of $1.22 million for the 2019 season. And whereas the Professional Baseball Agreement, a document that governs the relationship between Major League Baseball and the various levels of minor league baseball, expires in 2020, and Major League Baseball, despite record revenues, has proposed severing ties with 42 minor league teams and leagues, including the Johnson City Cardinals and the Appalachian League. And whereas the elimination of minor league baseball resulting in the demise of Appalachian League baseball teams, such as the Johnson City Cardinals, would not only undermine the health of professional baseball in America, but hurt the quality of life in many communities where professional baseball has been a proud tradition for over a century. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Johnson City Board of Commissioners meeting in regular session this 5th day of February 2020, that this board expresses formal support for its Johnson City Cardinal Championship rookie class baseball team, the Appalachian League, and for keeping minor league baseball in the United States of America. Be it further resolved that the City of Johnson City Board of Commissioners requests that the Tennessee General Assembly, Governor, and Tennessee Congressional Delegation take formal action to keep minor league baseball in the state of Tennessee and the United States of America, adopted this 5th day of February 2020.
Very good. I think we lost all of our photographers, but we would get a picture with you, Zach, if you could send in to show our support.
Yeah.
Is there anybody here who could take a picture?
You might have
David Floyd.
David Floyd in the back that might
David
be able
Wood,
to do
would
that.
he come out?
Charlie.
Okay. Commissioners, y'all want to come down front? And let's do that with Zach, and that way he can send it in, and they can get the seal of the city. Would you mind that for us?
Just a picture of you guys.
With that?
Yeah.
We need, you take one too, keep it in-house too.
Just let me know when you guys are ready. All right. Get closer.
So on count three, say strike three.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Let me get one more. 1, 2, 3.
We'll get that to you, and we can send it in. Great.
Is there anyone I should email this to?
Maybe just send it to Keisha.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
No problem.
Sending this in Major League Baseball as well as
Perfect. I figured we needed a seventh inning stretch anyway. Okay, Mr. Peterson. Oh, is there a motion to approve
Move
the
for approval.
resolution?
Second.
All right, motion is second. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes. And what do we say? Play ball.
That's right.
All right. Next.
Your next order of business is a request to assign to the Public Building Authority the duties to manage the planning and development of our Innovation Park properties out on West Market Street. As you're aware, we have 30 acres out there immediately adjacent to 30 acres owned by East Tennessee State University, and some 25 years ago, as the MedTech corridor was being discussed and developed and planned, there were three nodes to the MedTech corridor, what's now MedTech Park on the northern end, Millennium Park on the southern end, and in the middle was what we always referred to as Innovation Park, which is comprised of this 60 acres. And with the construction of North Lark Street, my title, we haven't named it that yet, but the new road up by the Boys Club, there's probably 12 to 15 acres up in there that's ready for development. And then the 30 acres that we have in conjunction with the 30 acres the university has. It's, the Innovation Park's time has arrived. There's a great opportunity there to jointly master plan and facilitate the development of that 60 acres and then the 15 on the other side of West Market Street. And the PBA has an outstanding track record of master planning, designing, and developing and managing projects. And that is an extraordinary, talented group of people and a resource that I feel like we need to take advantage of. Take advantage of their skills and the ability to manage projects. So I've been in discussions with Hank Carr to develop a timeline and a plan to move forward. And if I could, I'd like to ask Hank to come up and kind of outline the proposal as it's envisioned today. Hank, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Hank Carr, 3326 Bondwood Circle. I come here tonight as the chairman of the Public Building Authority. That's not exactly my role, but I think I got what could commonly be referred to as a battlefield promotion when Dr. Smith resigned. But the truth is, Pete said it very well, the Public Building Authority has been around for about, since 1997, 22 years. Had some incredible leadership. Dr. Edwards led it for many years. Mike Eddy led it through just some really tough times, and Dr. Smith led it up until recently, all the way through the transition of Millennium Center. And I think, having served on a bunch of community boards, this has been the best run, best managed group I've ever participated in. really for two reasons: leadership, and they were always allowed to do the right thing, hire the staff they needed, get the job done right, and they just did it well. Today, I got a couple of things that I can, what did I do here? I can add to this. I think we have 9 positions in the board. 2 are open. Mike Eddy serves at large today. Dan Miller, Tim Belisle, Stephen Dixon, Heidi Doolabon, Melissa Thomas, Scott Kadias. I mean, there's talent there. There's legal, there's operations, there's finance, there's accounting. There's just real skill here. Marketing skills, and these people serve, and they've done a great job. When you kind of look at the function of the Public Building Authority, if you go back to the original ordinance that set it up, it said it was there to engage in activities that may be reasonably necessary to implement functions or projects delegated from time to time by the authority or the Board of Commissioners of Johnson City, including not limited to design, planning, construction, acquisition, and property maintenance, acquisition of property maintenance, and operation of a project known as Continuing Education Center, which we all know as Millennium Center. Well, that's done. They did a great job, and they need a job. They need some work to do. They're ready to go to work. Tonight, I'm here to ask you to take the land at Millennium Center, and I've included the Optimist Park land. If that doesn't need to be a part of it, that's certainly up to you all, but it makes sense to me that you tie the two together, and give them the task of planning, developing, and selling that property to the benefit of the city. I mean, it's pretty simple what needs to happen. It needs to be to the benefit of the city. I think the thing that you have to kind of remember is you got 30 acres, and then there's the Optimist Park land. But it's really a 60-acre tract, so you got to include all this land that the university has here. And it's not quite as simple as you might think, because yeah, the city has fee simple to their 30 acres, and the university has control and fee simple of their 30 acres down in here. But the truth is they're partners in it, and you're never going to separate the two groups in so many ways. When you look at this project, it started out as 60 acres. It had a vision to have flexible, achievable long-term strategy for the development of the property. All 60 acres, though. That's the thing. It was done. If you look here back in 2003, the original master plan was done. And the design guidelines were implemented. There's been a lot of work done since then, but the truth is those 2 items that are underlined still are binding on your property today. It's clear in the deed that those 2 items, the way I read it, have a tremendous amount of impact on what you do, how you do it. It talks about different uses, mixed use, research, education, office, flex tech, knowledge base, lots of things. Talks about a campus atmosphere. I've just pulled some buzzwords out of there. But here's what you really need to think about is, as the university develops their piece, and you're sitting over here on yours, these 2 pieces need to be done together. They need to be thought out. They need to be planned together. But here's the thing. The university has a different set of priorities. They're growing their health campus. That's what they need to do. And they certainly have economic development at heart there. But yours is more of an economic development tool. It's about growing the footprint, growing jobs, and expanding the tax base. When you look at this set of guidelines, it's really clear. Whatever the PBA does, it has to be focused on university or medical type uses. It just says that. You can change it. You can go back and change it. It says it must be consistent with the University Innovation Park Master Plan. It was just done. You can change it. You can have appropriate commercial activity, may be approved. Keywords may, hotels supporting retail and restaurants. But it is not the primary thing there. Any development will require approval by the ETSU president and the city commission. You are going to have review of any changes to that plan or how it goes forward. And here's what's interesting. If you don't comply with those rules, this thing reverts. It's still got a reversionary clause, the way I read it, and I defer to some other folks. But it needs to be done and needs to be moved forward. And I think the first step is to get control of the property and get into hands of some folks that want to move it forward. Define the development expectations. A lot of that's done. And then go on and get the master plan updated, because the road that was contemplated originally cannot be built on the university's land. It's going to have to be on the city side. That's just the way it's set up. You do need to collaborate with the university for infrastructure. You need to figure out what that infrastructure is going to cost, build a pro forma, develop a marketing plan, get a governance policies and procedures together, gain plan and approval, just like you did for Medtech Park, just like you did for Millennium Center, Millennium Park, all that. You just got to go back and do it. And what I love about it is it's the last piece of the puzzle, and it just needs to move on now. The time is right. Pete said it best. The time is right. So I'm asking you to kind of move this thing forward, get it off in the right hands, give them the task. There's a bunch of work that's going to have to get done. It is not going to be inexpensive to do it, but it isn't going to get done sitting there without somebody kicking it down the road every day. So it's a great place to stop and answer questions.
Good. Commissioners, questions? This one's on one of your slides. You have 2 openings on the board.
We do.
And so we would probably ask you, I mean, this is going to be a big hunk of work here. You probably want to make sure you get the disciplines that you need. So make some recommendations, and let's get you up fully staffed.
Yeah, in the interest of full transparency, I was recently appointed to the JCDA board. And so I will probably be, once we get this built correctly, get the right team, I will probably be stepping off the PBA board. But they are more than qualified, and I will be there. There's other roles I can play if and when it's appropriate, but the JCDA is taking some time right now, and this group, this plan can be moved forward.
So you're talking about doing some planning around the property, so you're going to come back with what y'all think can be done here, in addition to the property up, the 12 acres up at Optimus.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think it ought to be thought of together and marketed together, and it just makes sense. You need to, there's a real, so the university is moving forward with plans to consolidate. They're looking at how they could consolidate some of their medical groups into that property. And it's just a real opportunity right now to figure out how to get this, both sides, I'll say both sides of the fence, jump-started. And, you know, what they are thinking about is it turns the lights on, and then what you could do gives it sustainability. And you're doing something that very few cities do. And you did that at Medtech Park. You spent some money, but it's pretty special. You did it at Millennium Center.
Yeah, well, we're pretty fortunate now that we have Lark Street that we can
change the world. It really did.
Extend and run the, the spine right down the middle of those 2 properties.
Yes, ma'am.
That's good.
So what, the question is tasking the PBA with this, but then Hank has also referenced the Optimus Park property. Are we putting them together in giving the charge for this project to the PBA, or do we need to do that separately?
I would recommend that you do them as a single assignment, and like Hank pointed out, those 2 pieces are geographically located so close together. You really need to treat that whole thing as one development piece, because there's going to be interest somewhere along the way. I'd about bet on it that somebody's going to be interested in one side of the road or the other, and then once you start talking through it, they may be a better fit on the other side of the road than where they started out. And by having the charge of developing the entirety, I think you'll have a lot more cohesive, comprehensive development there.
Those 2 properties at some future point are envisioned having a connection across, so that
Hank's map there, the yellow line is what I refer to as North Lark Street. The signal there on Market That road, at least in my mind, and we'll see where the master planners get with it, would go through the 30 acres and bend and go back towards North State of Franklin Road, and tie in somewhere there on State of Franklin Road. It really facilitates traffic movement quite a bit.
I'm gonna
And
cheat a little.
There you go. Thank you, Hank.
Can it go through to McKinley Road, Pete?
It will probably connect down to McKinley, and it almost will need to in a lot of ways. So there's just some real interesting things. See, you've got a traffic signal here at Century Lane. This is really just a driveway connection up here. And you got a traffic signal over here at Med-Center Professional Park Drive. And the thought is really connect all this down, tie all this together. And then you've got a link that goes from Lark Street all the way over to what we'll call the 310 building, Med-Center Professional Park. And, I don't want to overstate the complexity of this, because you're dealing two different organizations, different priorities, different means of allowing public access over their property. There's a fair amount of work to do. There's a bunch of roads in here that have to be converted from private to public, and land's got to be traded, and we've got some thoughts on how to do that, but not too many people have, 45 acres of really nice land in the heart of your business community. I just think it's time to go look at it. And maybe it takes 20 years to do, or 30. Maybe get it done in 10, I don't know, but it's going to take a while, and you just got to get going. The PBA's got some money that they have from their previous efforts that they can expend on this as well. So they've got a budget to help with this.
Well, I think it's a great idea, and you're right, the team that you have is, looks like maybe you need to put an attorney on or something.
Yeah,
to add some.
Simple as.
What we
Oh, that's
want
right, Tim's
is
on
your
there.
approval to move this forward tonight. Bunch of work's gonna have to get done, but in my mind, you would give them control of the land, control of the process. The guidelines are there. They can't deviate very far. It's, unfortunately, they're gonna have to figure out how to navigate through the guidelines. They're significant. They just can't go off and get creative here.
Okay, commissioners, anybody else want to weigh in or make a motion?
Make the motion to approve this request.
For a second?
Second.
With enthusiasm, we'll vote on this now. I think everybody's tired, Hank.
I understand.
Don't take our lackluster energy
I hear you.
levels. No, this looks great, and
Thank
and I can just see, some master planning, and, just the Lark Street project alone has opened up that 16 acres up there that we didn't really have access to, and the street itself will help take a lot of pressure off that intersection. So it's really ripe for, the right projects there. And I think you guys are the ones to do it, so we appreciate that.
They'll do a good job.
Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Thank
you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Hank. This takes you to the public input section of your agenda.
Is there anyone here to address the commission? Seeing no one, I'll close the public input.
Manager's report. I'll report on a couple of things. Janet, if you will, I'm going to get you to walk them through the financial highlights here in a moment. As you all are aware of this, I guess just for the general public's benefit, we recently invited some folks up from TVA that helped us walk through a planning session that was attended by the CVB and the JCDA and several other quasi-governmental entities to help us start putting together a direction and a future plan for where we want to take the city. The report from the TVA consultants is back in, and we talked about this a little bit the other night. We're going to try to set up another session on February the 20th to do some additional work with that, but this is a really good start to do some medium-term, long-range planning. We also recently had the opportunity to spend the better part of an afternoon with Dr. Nolan and his staff at the university to learn about what their vision is for the intermediate term and long term, and to better understand some of their opportunities and challenges and goals and objectives. And it gave us a great opportunity to check the temperature, I guess, of how closely aligned our missions and visions for the upcoming decade, at least, are synchronized. You know, we talked about the need for the university to grow enrollment, the need for the university to have space to grow physical facilities. We talked about the visual appearance of University Parkway and State of Franklin Road. We talked about pedestrian safety, traffic patterns, traffic speed on those two streets. We talked about the great opportunities that we've got to jointly work to develop West Walnut Street, and the critical nature of a comprehensive and very well organized growth of West Walnut Street, as that would present some opportunities for the ETSU to expand their footprint in conjunction with us in terms of job creation, entrepreneurship, and one of the most often repeated things out of these planning sessions we've been having is to keep ETSU graduates in Johnson City once they graduate. This is a great opportunity to work in concert with them to help that move along. Additionally, as it has been reported in the paper, we've been in discussions with the mall now for several months about their recently announced expansion and renovation. That is great news that the owners of the mall property realize the importance and the vitality of that facility to their organization as well as the economy of Johnson City. They've got some new stores coming in. They're going to repurpose the Sears site. They're going to develop some out parcels out along North Rhone Street. So it's really exciting that they're going to make a tens of millions of dollars worth of investment into the mall property and revitalize that.
Hey, can I add to that? We just approved last night the Animal Control Board. The mall has offered the animal shelter of space down between the old Sears and Dick's in that entryway, which is going to become really one of the main entrances. They're doing a lot of remodeling in that area, making kind of a gathering space. They'll have a fire pit. They'll have places for the kids to play. And they approached the shelter to see if we would be interested in putting in a cat adoption storefront there, where people can register their animals, get microchipped, do educational programs, even buy pet supplies. And so we approved doing that, so we'll have a bigger presence. And I think that just speaks of their creativity, knowing that will bring people into the mall, and then helping us because people in the mall will pass by and see, the cats there. So anyway, we're really excited about that. And also, Keisha met with them, I think today.
She did.
Because they want to change some of their signage and all that and try to incorporate Johnson City's brand in that, so that's great.
Washington Prime realizes they need to keep their product fresh and current, and the mall that most of us grew up with, no disrespect, Commissioner Hunter, is that model isn't the most productive model anymore. There's going to be a lot more, I think, dining, entertainment, family activities to go along with the shopping in that facility, and it's going to be a different mall, and I think a product that everybody will be very pleased with, and will add a new element of energy to the mall. And I guess tangent to that, Public Works is currently working on designing a streetscape improvement for North Rhone Street that would be North Rhone Street eventually as far out probably as the Kingsport-Bristol Highway split. looking at sidewalks, trails, landscaping, traffic control, street signage, decorative street lighting, something similar to what we've done with State of Franklin through downtown and are envisioning on West Walnut Street. We feel like it's mission critical to recognize the vibrancy and the amount of economic activity that happens out on North Run Street, and we haven't been out there doing an update in some time, so we will get some plans together, and you'll be seeing more detail about that during the upcoming budget discussions as we request some funding to make improvements out on North Run Street. Happy to report that the Lower Brush Creek project is now out to bid. That's the sewer interceptor replacement project that runs from Broadway down to the plant down the river. That'll be out probably another 3 or 4 weeks. They had a mandatory pre-bid meeting earlier in the week, and hopefully we'll be back to you sometime in March, early April, for a bid approval and get that project kicked off. We are still cognizant of the desire to look at some sort of multimodal connection down to the river, and while that will not be a part of this project that's currently out to bid, we're still trying to identify ways to accomplish getting that connection put into place. This isn't really a formal group, but the Washington County Mayor, Sullivan County Mayor, and the 3 city managers get together on at least a bi-monthly basis to discuss progress with Aerospace Park. We had a meeting yesterday. The grading project is right at 53-54% mark. We're a little bit ahead of time schedule right now. Whether the projected completion of the grading project is the end of the calendar year, as you can imagine, when you're pushing red clay, it's 100% weather dependent. So if we get a summer similar to what we experienced last year, we're probably in good shape. If we get a really wet spring, summer, and fall, it may be delayed a little bit further than that. So we're where we ought to be with construction of the project. Northeast State continues to work towards getting a airframe and power plant FAA certification for a program that they're trying to get up and started. That is absolutely mission critical to the success of Aerospace Park. The intended tenants for that development are dependent upon people with those certifications, and if we can get someone with a program that's certified, they're on the airfield, then that really ensures those employers of a good qualified workforce that's immediately available and that can be further trained and expanded as needed. The other thing that we discussed yesterday is instructed the staff at the airport to put together an RFP soliciting a firm that specializes in marketing and attracting business to aerospace parks. The local economic development folks have been doing that to this point and have done a reasonably good job. But we felt like for the investment that the state and the local governments have made in this project and the potential that this project has, that we need to go ahead and hire the best help that we can hire to augment our ongoing efforts and get this project moving and hopefully start going vertical with some development out there in the next 12 to 15 months, if at all possible.
We ran into Gene recently, and he really has, our whole commission's really never, had a chance to talk with him. I invited him to come, maybe on a Monday night or something, just to
certainly
to talk about the airport in general, flights, all that kind of stuff, and then his take on the aerospace park as well. So maybe sometime in the latter part of March or something.
Maybe have him come into a meeting and just give an update on the airport. I mean, the Cliff Notes version is employments and departures have steadily increased throughout the whole year. Revenues are up. People using the airport is up. Things are really looking good. I think the as is evidenced by the fact that American added a direct flight to Dallas. So far, since that was put into place, the numbers have been real good. I think American's very well pleased with the utilization on that flight. And they continue to work to try to get a flight to Chicago and to DC. Those are probably the two most next likely destinations out of Tri-Cities. So Gene has been a good addition and is doing us a really good job at the airport. Sarah, the mayor and I met with Congressman Rowe and the Surgeon General the other day, as did various other groups throughout the city, I think, that day. And what they were really interested in our discussion was, what are we doing with wellness programs and to promote good health and wellness amongst our employees? What's worked, what hasn't worked? What kind of benefits have we received? And we also got off into a discussion of the importance to start with young people, learn and get across them the importance of good health and the economic benefit of raising a society of people that recognizes the physiological and the financial benefits of a healthy lifestyle. It was a really engaging conversation. I felt like we were there with Eastman and Food City and Crown, and there was a really good dialogue and exchange of information. There's really some pretty exciting things going on in the region that I know some of those things I wasn't aware of.
He's a very, very sharp, smart guy.
He is. He's
from our perspective too, the conversation came around how cities support our citizens because we have accessible trails and features in our city, the built environment, so they can be more active, and that we support that healthy culture, because when you ride through town, you see people being very active. So that was another good part of the discussion as well. And I think we're very committed there and have done a lot.
Yes, ma'am.
And need to do more.
You all approved the purchase of a new fire engine in the 19 budget. That we put that into service the end of the week last week. So the firefighters at Station 9 were very appreciative of your investment and recognition of their need for good quality equipment. So we've got that into service. Let's see. As you know, you all approved and you did final approval on the budget amendment this evening for the addition of a cybersecurity position within our information technology group. We have extended an offer for employment which has been accepted. I think that person comes to work for us the first week in March. It's a local person that has done work for us for 8 or 10 years through a third-party contractor, so they're very familiar with our operation and our systems. It should be an extremely easy transition and something that we really need to do, and hopefully will keep us out of trouble with hackers and malware and all those types of things. The other position in IT that we were able to fill this week is, if you'll recall, our GIS director, Link, left us a couple of months ago, and we were able to get that position filled this week, and we're not quite sure yet when they will be available. It's involving a relocation from Colorado, somebody that wanted to get back to this area closer to family. So we hope to have them on board sometime here in the next 6 weeks or so. But those are two very critical positions. It's really good to get those filled. Those are extremely difficult positions to fill in this employment climate, and they command a good salary and benefit package, but it's going to be worth the investment, and I think both of these individuals will take our internal and external service to a new level. These are going to be good additions to our organization. I've got a list of 5 or 6 other things on here, from the regional legislative breakfast to Bob's working on an agreement dealing with CVB and chamber and all those types of things. We've had an update meeting with the design team hired to do the Winged Deer Park athletic field expansions, and they've updated some cost for us, and we've tasked them for further fine-tuning their preliminary schematic design and those types of things. We've got on our work timeline for this calendar year to get the road built from the Bristol Highway up into the property, and the installation of the water line that we need to get up there to service our facilities when they're built. And also, as a condition of the property swap with Mr. and Ms. Sell, if you'll recall, they swapped us some property in exchange for us running the water line up there. So we've been in discussions with the church. The church has agreed to work with us in terms of the location of the road, and it looks like we're going to be able to do something that will be of great benefit to the church as well as to us. And I'd be glad to answer. Well, I guess the other big thing on here, Sonny and I have continued to work on the agreement with the county. Everyone, the county mayor and Sonny and I have never wavered from the term of the agreement or the amount of the agreement, that being an annual payment to the city of $500,000 a year for 25 years. We've been going back and forth on some legalese about approvals and the waiver of rights to things. The big ticket items we've been in agreement on for quite some time, and starting tomorrow, the agreement will start moving through the county committee system. HEW meets tomorrow, and so it will be on the county commission meeting the end of the month of February, I guess barring one of their committees kicking it and delaying it. But at this time, Joe said he didn't foresee anything like that happening, that we would move on and get a decision on whether we can agree or whether we're going to have to agree to disagree at the end of the month.
Any questions? Janet, everything going well in your shop? I think we heard a lot of good stuff, but how about revenues and sales tax?
Well, I'll cover a short little highlight on the financials, but before we do that, I need to take care of a matter that will keep us in compliance with the comptroller's office. You recently approved a state revolving fund loan in the amount of $15 million to fund some rather major improvements with the water sewer system. So we are required to file a report on debt obligation with the state, and I have to just make that as a matter of mentioning it at the meeting. So I've done that now, and you have a copy in front of you, and we are now in compliance.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so with the financials, just briefly, we did close out December 31st was the property tax deadline. We did, I'm happy to say, collect 84.2% of our billing, which is 1% better than last year. So that was good news. Of course, property taxes comprise 39% of our budget, so it's a pretty significant chunk of the revenue budget. Our additional billings so far have netted to $13,000. Mr. Peterson mentioned, I believe during the last meeting, that during a year of reassessment, we occasionally will encounter a bit of a downturn. So we don't have the growth there we would love to have, but it was a reassessment year. So I think, to kind of end up even is good news in this case. Now, I do have some better news to report. Sales tax collections continue to be strong. We are optimistic, and if the economy keeps going in the direction it's going, and we stay fairly constant, we're going to have some really good numbers finishing out the year. Through the first 6 months, we're over $400,000 better than budget. So just to give you an idea, and this is only through really 5 months of retail sales, because there is a 2-month lag between us getting the money, getting the reports from the state, and from the time that the retail sale is made at the establishment. So that's really $460,000 up through 5 months. November year-to-date actual, we are $392,000 better than last year. So, and $30,000 better for the month of November. So through 5 months, we're 4.3% better than last year. So I think that's really good news. So although we're down on, not really down, but just kind of break even on property taxes, we've got some good growth there. And sales taxes make up, a good part of our budget as well. So with that, I have 3 or 4 numbers on general fund, and then if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer those. So as far as the general fund of the city, we ended the first 6 months with a surplus of $11.7 million. Now that sounds like a really large number. However, you have to remember we've collected over 84% of our property taxes. So there's not a lot left there on property taxes for the rest of the year to collect. So we've collected 60% of our total revenues already through half of the year. So we'll use those property tax revenues to sustain us through the remainder of the fiscal year. We've only spent 46.6% of our expenditure budget. So the departments are doing a really great job, as they always do, in staying within their budget, and I have no reason to think we won't end the year in a good position. We are $785,000 on the bottom line better than last year. Part of that, a little bit of that is timing. Some of that is the growth in the sales tax, as well as some growth in some other revenue areas. The Economic Development Reserve is at $2 million. It continues to be a good source for funding some of those economic development projects, some of those critical connector streets and things like Lark Street and so forth.
Jen, would you remind us where the revenue sources are for our Economic Development Fund?
The Economic Development Fund revenues come from the previous MedTech Park property taxes. So now that is all built out and we don't need those monies for infrastructure, construction, and so forth, the commission very wisely took action a few years ago to set those property taxes aside. So we track those on an annual basis, and you're able to use those for some projects that will continue to drive further economic development in the community. The enterprise funds continue to show improvement over last year. They've all shown higher net profit than they did in the previous year. Of course, those profits are reinvested in infrastructure improvements within those enterprise funds. Freedom Hall is showing at a little above break even through 6 months of the year, so they're holding their own. That's the highlights. So if you have questions or you want me to report on some other areas,
Well,
I'm
the
happy to.
lodging tax is up too, isn't
Lodging
it?
tax is
Up
up.
7%, we saw.
We have about $500,000 or $600,000 in the 2% reserve. That is the 2% of the hotel occupancy tax that is set aside to pay for the debt service on the Fine and Performing Arts Center. So another economic development driver.
Questions?
Just as clarification, attachment A on page 5, the correction and adjustments, those were due to the reappraisals, or what?
Actually, the majority of those, we do have some from reappraisals, but if you look through there and see some of those are, from time to time, we have establishments that will approach the State Board of Equalization, and they feel as though they're tax exempt. And so a couple of those, the state board did deem that they are tax exempt entities. So we were required to take them down to zero assessment. There are a couple of entities in there where we are in a pilot agreement. So that just reflects the impact of the pilot agreement. Of course, you don't see the other side of that in this report is, the economic driver that is on the other side, the reason that we got into the pilot agreements, so.
Thank you very, that was a good report.
Thank
I've been
you.
sitting up here when it hasn't been, so this is good. All right, commissioners, anything? Commissioner Calhoun?
Looking forward to the governor's visit tomorrow evening, and hearing the state of East Tennessee. And I will say that the Surgeon General spent a great deal of time at ETSU and had a nice discussion about population health with Dr. Wyckoff and ETSU Health, and how we are establishing that brand with Dr. Bishop. And then a very good roundtable for about an hour and a half on the opioid crisis that was well attended. About 60 to 70 folks were in there. Our police chief was in there. We had a lot of district attorneys, a lot of energy, and I think the Surgeon General was quite impressed with some of the things that we're doing, and was especially impressed with the efforts of our College of Pharmacy in getting everyone involved with naloxone training.
Thank you. Commissioner Hunter? Yep.
I'm sure others will speak on it, but I think we had a good visit in Nashville with the other Kingsport and Bristol and our Northeast delegation. It was a good meeting, and I think we were able to get across some good points and advocate for our region. And then earlier today, the TIF Advisory Board met, a function of JCDA, and reviewed a request that will come back later, but it looks like on Walnut Street, and it looks like a pretty interesting concept. So, that's all I got.
Mr. Fowler?
I don't think I have anything to add.
You don't?
No.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
One question, when do we anticipate the employee survey results being back? I know it seems like we're a little bit off schedule doing 2-year intervals.
We should get the results back this week.
Okay.
The draft report.
And when can we expect to see those?
You should probably have it by the next commission meeting, the week of the next commission meeting.
Maybe on the agenda review, you could.
If we get it turned around and processed,
You probably want to be able to talk about it before.
Right.
We get a hold of it.
Yeah, so within the next 2 or 3 weeks, you all have the final report. Yes, sir.
And when was the last one then?
2 years ago.
Well, I mean more specifically, because I feel like it was going on right after we were elected. But didn't we get that report in like June?
I can't recall.
You remember, Bob? I don't.
It was done in the fall.
Probably.
We might be a couple of months behind the time frame for the other one.
Yeah, we probably got it in November last time, 2 years ago, so we're probably 26 months out, 27 months out.
My final thing will be the census. We need to mention it. Keisha will be getting all of us just a couple little talking points. And so I want to encourage all of us, anywhere you are, you have a chance to mention it. And John, even in your facilities and all, maybe get some posters and stuff. She has access to that, hopefully in your shops as well. We had a meeting today with the Complete Count Committee, which is representatives from all the major employers in the area. ETSU was there, the school, both school systems, the VA. So we have everybody, the big employers, but just in terms of timing, it's in less than a month, everybody will get a card in the mail that says the census is open. And so you can go online and take the census there. And then everybody will have up until the first part of April to complete it. So there are concerns about participation this year, so we need to do everything we can to get everybody there. One of the big things is going to be representation. We know that we're already, because so many people are moving to these big urban areas, that their population's going to go up, so they're going to get more representation down there. And then if ours go down because people don't take the census, it will change a lot. So we need to get them there, plus the money.
You could do some public service announcements
Yes.
on Channel 11.
Actually, Mayor Grandy and I are going to do one that's going to be good to watch. Let's put it that way. Yeah, we've got kind of a last plan here to kind of get out there publicly. And y'all too, any chance you get. I think that's it. Everybody will be going to hear the mayor tomorrow night and, excuse me, the governor. I apologize. But, we're aware of his state of the state and how positive that is for the state of Tennessee, and we're looking forward to his comments about East Tennessee. We know he really appreciates East Tennessee, so we'll look forward to seeing and talking with him and listening. Okay? All right, folks. Nothing else? Meeting adjourned.